as a illustrator is you try and do everything you can to see that vision in your head and realizing it, right? And probably for you, it's frustrating because you don't always see how amazing your work is right away. You probably look first at what's missing. Am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah, am I right?
Yeah, it's kind of hard because I think like the last 3 or 4 commissions I just finished, to me it looks like crap. I'm just very unhappy with it. But when like I show it to people or I show it to my manager, which is Mel, he's like, "Oh, it's good," but you can't really see it. So it's exactly like what you said, where um, you tend to see the mistakes and the flaws first. But it's in a way it's a good thing, because for the longest time I thought that that's a bad thing too. It is bad generally because sometimes you're in a paralysis where you don't actually produce anything. But if you're managing yourself pretty well, where you can keep producing, and that perfectionistic weird nitpicking side doesn't go away, the good thing about that part I realize is it makes you strive higher and higher. Like you're never satisfied in a way. It's kind of strange. It's kind of weird but you need a little bit of that always. I feel like if you want to keep progressing, because if you don't have that and the moment you're satisfied, you just plateau. Well, sometimes it's not even plateauing, you actually go down. And it's a weird dichotomy, like artists have to, I feel like any creators have to always walk that line. One is you can't be happy, and then one is you kind of have to be happy. But if you're too happy, you're not going to progress. If you're too unhappy, you might want to progress, but you might not produce. But that side, the negative side, actually, this is just my experience. It makes you go on further and further to do better and better. Like even though everyone around you might say, "Oh, it's great, you're great," but inside, what's the truth. It has to be your truth in a way. And then if it coincides with your truth and say, "Hey, I think this piece kind of looks okay." And then you keep going on. But most of the time, that kind of voice that you have, it's kind of, I feel like it can be a good thing. I don't know. I'm not making any sense right now, but yes.
No, you actually are. Would you like me to get? Can I expand on your thought? Maybe give
Thank
you a
you.
perspective. I'll expand on it. So, in writing, in art, doesn't matter. I think this is my take on art in general. Art is there is in one real sense there's nothing we do that's truly unique. You're putting lines on a page and you're making shapes and you're making them connect, and you're making a very cool Lego puzzle essentially is what you're doing, because what you're doing is taking squares, circles, triangles, all these different shapes, and you're creating an image. And you're never satisfied completely because you know you can be better. And deep down you pushing yourself this way because you feel that um, perfection as an ideal is a wonderful thing to pursue. However, here's the flip side, and I think this is maybe this will maybe make it easier for you in some ways, probably harder in others, because what we bring to the table when we ever create, whether we write a story or create art or do any of those things, is ourselves. Our flaws, however those whatever that you may see in your flaws, they're what makes us stand out. That's the flip side to that. It's not. I wouldn't want a perfect world because a perfect world would bore me to fucking tears. Nothing would change. The cool thing about art, art is the ultimate expression of the individual. And the thing about you is, no matter what you work on, whether it's something from an established property or something that's your own, it's Mog Park. And the cool thing is that Mog Park today is she's going to become someone different tomorrow. Hopefully better. I mean, most days probably are better. Some days you probably take a step back. That's everybody, right? Everybody has shit days. Everybody has good days. But I think so what I look for, and this is what I kind of find, this is where my balance is. I strive to change. I no longer strive necessarily for perfection, because perfection, as you say, can be a very toxic thing, because we'll never hit that ideal. But what I'm striving for at this point is the ability to change and grow. I'm unique. There are some things about me that will never change, but there's a lot that can. And that to me is the true frontier of art. How can I get better? Does that make sense?
Yes, yes, and I absolutely agree with you. If everything is perfect and flawless, it'll be boring. There's no taste, nothing. And in fact, segueing from what you just said, Neil Gaiman, he actually said, well, he was quoting from another writer, but he said, a style is the flaw of the artist,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah,
And then that
true.
what makes it you is your flaws. And I thought that was really cool.
Yeah,
So,
because and honestly, I mean, I don't like. I mean, so even in nature, like I look at okay, salt, like sea salt has these like if you look at it like under microscope blast, you hear iodized salt. Iodized salt is like this perfect circular or square, like it's mechanical, and you can tell that this iodized salt is a mechanical manufactured thing. You look at sea salt. Sea salt's got these little black dots in it, like it's different shapes, different sizes. Like the grains are just irregular, right? It's really right. But here's the thing those irregularities in the sea salt actually make it so they absorb into the body better than the iodized salt does, right? Because if it wasn't for the fact that those flaws existed, it wouldn't work as well. Sometimes those flaws are actually what make it better. It's true in nature. It's also true in art, right? I wouldn't want perfection because perfection to me doesn't there's no growth, there's no change, there's no style, there's nothing great about perfection. The idea of having to find that image in your head and trying to do your best to mirror it, that's cool. But I think what I'm learning to do in my stories, I'm just having fun with the drawing stuff right now. I'm working on getting to the point where I'm confident. That's my goal with art with that, so I can do comic books and take over the world and all that other wonderful fun stuff. But um, the thing about anything you do, your style is not only just your flaws, but it's also your growth. It's your personality. It's everything that makes you you. For example, I'm writing a sci-fi novel. I decided to throw in a giant cupcake because I can, and it's the big villain. It's my Frankenstein monster. It's a red velvet Pac-Man-esque cupcake. It doesn't necessarily fit anything conventional, but it doesn't have to. This is just me exploring the fun, the joy of creation itself, right? Yes, it is strange that I came up with a giant cupcake that people want to be murdered by. It is a weird thing, but you know what? It's a fun thing. It's a Disney afternoon thing, right? That's what makes art so wonderful. It's so joyful. I can't duplicate you in a million years. I'll never be able to. There's only one Mog Park. That's what makes it awesome. And the fact that you put the work in you have, right? Respect, honestly.
wow, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's so interesting about what you said about the sea salt versus iodine. This is so random, but it reminded me of this story where in kimchi that we all eat, right?
Yeah.
Kimchi. To make it, it's a basically fermented cabbage,
Mm.
and to ferment anything, you need salt. And for some reason, this specific region, their kimchi is so famous. It's so good. And one day, there's a bunch of farmers who, not a farmer, people who actually sell sea salt. They have their salt farm. I don't know what you call them.
Yeah.
These manufacturer guys, they've been doing it for generations. And because of economy, they're raising their prices.
Mm-hmm.
And then the locals around them said, "Nah, I'm not gonna use your sea salt anymore. I'm just gonna use cheap iodine salt." And they were worried that their business was gonna go out. But the strange thing is, when the kimchi finally fermented and people were selling kimchi, the taste was just nowhere near the same as the sea salt that they were doing. And they're wondering why. What is it in that salt that was so particularly that makes it good? So they looked under a microscopic thing and they broke it down. And what was so interesting was the very weird microscopic impurities that made it so distinct. And it was just could only happen in that region because what was going on was the salt marshes was surrounded by pine tree. It is a specific pine tree that grows indigenous in that area. And these pine trees, during while they're drying the salt, they would flower, and all those pollens of that pine would settle down and mingle with that sea salt. So that's what made their salt so particular. It was that very weird random impurity